All right, thank you for tuning in to Chompin at the Bit. I am Kyle Edwards, of course. This is episode number 70. And this episode, we're going to take a look at the national championship game between Alabama and Ohio State that happened last night. Break it down a little bit. But I think my main focus with the game is take a look at some of the big name players that were in that game, where it's kind of a foregone conclusion that they will probably enter the draft, and then see kind of where those players could project come next season. Let's also take a look at Joel Klatt, who is a college football analyst, and he's actually a pretty good listen if you ever watch Colin Cowherd's show, because he gives his honest opinion on most schools and all that. But what I do like about him is he was once one of those guys who thought the playoff had to stay at 4, but he's kind of come around to my side. If you remember some episodes ago, I laid out what I thought the playoff should look like with 16 teams. Now he hasn't come fully to 16, but he did have an interesting structure on the show. I think today. Yeah, he was on it today. And I just want to quickly go over it because I think it's actually a pretty good one. So we'll talk about that. And then, of course, end of the episode. Set you up for episodes to come this week. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump in to some recap of the national championship game. So if you guys watched it, you'd have noticed that early on the game was kind of back and forth, but you could tell that Alabama just had way too many athletes, and Devontae Smith, Ohio State didn't know what to do with him. Alabama kept putting him in motion, and Ohio State kind of got confused whether to stick man on him, play zone with him. Whatever they did, it didn't stop him. They couldn't stop him. He only played basically half the game. He had 3 touchdowns. He had, I think, over 200 yards receiving. So if he had played the whole game, who knows what kind of numbers he would have put up. Mac Jones had 5 touchdowns. He did have a little bit of calf injury, but didn't slow him down. He looked good. Najee Harris, the top running back for Alabama, ran with a purpose. He ran with power. He ran with speed. He scored a touchdown. He looked good. It's kind of the main standouts coming to the game for Alabama. Ohio State, on the other end, you had Justin Fields. He looked like he clearly was still feeling the effects of the hit from last week with Clemson. I don't know if it was like hip, ribs or something, but then he kind of took a big hit early in the game yesterday. And you could tell that it really affected him. He just didn't look too comfortable out there early on. He did get a little bit warmer towards halftime and coming out of halftime, but it seemed like whenever Ohio State was able to put points on the board and maybe start building momentum, Alabama would come right back, drive down the field, score a touchdown, and just keep the lead. I think they kept the lead kind of like 2-3 touchdowns for most of the game. Then ultimately they ended up winning by 4 touchdowns. It was a 52-24. So, Nick Saban gets another ring, and oddly enough, it does keep up the weird stat that Nick Saban, Bill Belichick have never won rings in the same year, I believe. I think that's still a thing. And, of course, this year the Patriots weren't even in the playoffs, but Alabama gets the ring, so that has held up yet again. Alabama's going to have the normal guys graduate and enter the draft. But since they're such a football factory, I'm sure they're going to be the favorite come next year. Ohio State, you already know Justin Fields is on his way out. I think Olave who's another guy who, I mean, I think because of Fields' inability to really perform at a high level, it did hurt Olave's production. Although I do like Olave a lot. I think he's going to be a good wide receiver in the next level. The running back for them, was it Trey Sermon? He basically got hurt early in the first quarter, so he wasn't much of a factor, which definitely did hurt Ohio State's offense. But, I mean, Alabama's defense was, I mean, they were adequate. You know, the good passing teams have put up points on Alabama. I mean, the last team was with Florida in the SEC title game. You know, Trask and Pitts and all that. They were able to move the ball in Alabama. Ohio State just really struggled to really keep the game close. I would have liked to have seen, you know, if it was close late in the fourth, you know, how would Fields kind of step up and perform in a situation like that. We didn't get that. So, yeah, ultimately, like I said, Alabama wins it all. Going to the game, most people, that's kind of what they were guessing was going to happen. So, ultimately, that is what happened. And, like I said, college football, the season is over. And now we can kind of look towards just the draft / well, I guess we'll kind of look a little forward draft-wise. So like I said, just taking a quick look at some of the big names coming into the game and how well they did. We'll start with Ohio State since they lost the game. We'll start there. So Justin Fields, 17 of 33. You'd like to see completion percentage a little higher than that. He threw for less than 200 yards. Not good. But I will say, looking at Justin Fields and then projecting him next level, I think Todd McShay has him going around like late teens, 15, 19 area, which means if that does happen, he would be in play for the Patriots. Once again, you all know I'm a Patriots fan. When I heard 15th, got a little excited because watching Justin Fields play against Alabama, the one thing that stood out to me was he kind of looks, let's see if I can put this correctly, like he's not as big as Cam Newton, of course, but he does kind of give me Cam Newton vibes. But I will say of course, Justin Fields' throwing motion is better looking than Cam's, which I think, you know, Cam, because he is a little bigger, that's just how it turned out he ended up throwing the ball. But Fields does have a better throwing motion, so I think he'll be able to make more throws, more of the, you know, tough throws along the sideline and touch throws like that. He'll be able to do that better than Cam Newton. And I think because of his better motion, he will be able to throw it downfield a little better. So yeah, if Fields drops to New England, I would be fine with that. I would take that. And even when he scrambles, he runs he looks like Cam Newton when he's, you know, running downfield. The other guy, like I said, Sermon, he only got one carry, so it's unfortunate for him. His backup was Master Teague, which, great name there. He did well with 15 carries, but with Ohio State down a lot in the second half, they couldn't really try to establish a running game. So with his limited times touching the ball, he was fine. So Olave had 8 catches, 69 yards. It's pretty good numbers. He kind of reminds me of like, for some reason I want to say like Tyler Lockett with Seattle. Kind of a smaller guy, pretty good route runner. He, usually makes the catches along the sideline, has good body control. I think Olavi is eligible to enter the draft. Yeah, he's a junior, so, he's probably coming out this year. But he's another guy who, from the few games I watched of Ohio State, was a player that I really kept my eyes on because, he's got speed. He can make plays with the ball in his hand, and he can, he would be good probably in any system because if you're a option route type of team, he's a guy who can sit down in a zone, make a catch, turn up field, make a couple of guys miss, and make plays like that. I was really impressed with their other wide receiver who kind of came in more in the second half when the game was out of reach, but they're Jackson Smith, Jibba or something. He's a freshman, so he's not coming out this year, but that's a guy to watch next couple of years down the line. Defensively, Sean Wade is probably the big name defensively. Their cornerback. Wade had the tough job of trying to cover Devontae Smith a lot of the night. And like I said, Devontae Smith was he couldn't be covered. Sean Wade, I feel like Sean Wade's probably more of a maybe zone type corner. I don't know. Because there was some times where he tried bump and run with Devontae Smith and couldn't get his hands on him, and Smith kind of had a free run. Now, once again, Devontae Smith is really quick, so that's probably was part of the problem. But, there's other receivers like that in the NFL, so I don't know if Wade really would perform well in a man-to-man type defense. I think I don't think he's a, Stephon Gilmore type corner, but I think he could be Marcus Peters. Marcus Peters plays for Baltimore right now, and Peters is a guy who started off with the Rams, and the Rams played a lot of man-to-man in the secondary, and he struggled a little bit, but now that he's moved on to Baltimore where they play a little bit off the line and more zone-type looks, Peters performs well because, he can sit back a little bit, read the quarterback's eyes, and then jump the ball. Sean Wade can do that as well. I feel like those are the big names coming in for Ohio State. So let's go ahead and jump over to the Alabama side of the ball. Mac Jones was great. 36 for 45, 464 through the air with the 5 touchdown passes. So, first glimpse from watching him last night, I kept seeing Eli Manning. I feel like his throwing motion looks like if you put a New York Giant jersey on him, you would think it was Eli Manning out there. He's not that mobile either. Eli wasn't really that mobile. The only thing I usually worry about with Alabama quarterbacks is, can you really truly judge them based off of their college experience? Because most Alabama quarterbacks have 2 great running backs, 2-3 top wide receivers that they're throwing to, and they're usually going against a lot of defenses that can't defend that type of talent, so it's usually easier for them to find open receivers. And of course, once you get to the NFL, that's not a normal thing. But he did make some throws that were definitely NFL quality. I think there was a play in the third where he dropped back. The pocket was collapsing a little bit on him, and he had to throw a touch pass to, I think it was Michi, however you pronounce his last name. where he had to get it up over the corner because he scrambled a little bit to his right, so it became kind of a scramble drill for the wide receiver. And like Mechie turned up field, got around the corner. He had to loft it over that corner, and before the safety could get over, and he lofted it perfectly, and they got a big first down on the sideline. And, you know, a throw like that translates at the next level. He was, like I said, 36 for 45. He was really accurate passing the ball. Another good thing. He can push the ball downfield. So he's going to be an interesting prospect next level. I do think a game like this may push his draft stock up a little bit higher than it probably needs to be, because there was some talk of him going, I guess, late first round. I don't know if I would take him there, but if I was a team in the middle of the second round and a Mac Jones was there, I think you'd get great value at that position. But then again, if somebody takes him late in the first round, it'd have to be a pretty decent team with maybe an aging quarterback. Which, now you think about it, maybe a Pittsburgh. That's literally their situation. But I don't know. He's an interesting one to look at come draft time, where exactly he ends up going. But yeah, hopefully he doesn't go too high and to the wrong team, because like I said, Alabama quarterbacks have been real hit or miss, because you have Tua right now, and even Tua is looking, it's kind of seemed like the more and more you get tape on Tua, I guess it kind of shows like the first couple of games where he was, on fire, and he won like 3-0, 4-0 in his first couple of games. Then he started to struggle late in the season. And now there's kind of some questions of how, like, what Tua's ceiling is actually going to be. And not to say he's not a starting quarterback in the league, but might have to temper your expectations with him now. But then you look back, you have guys like, was it Greg McElroy, A.J. McCarron, who was a career backup. Who was the other big name Alabama quarterback before that? Like I said, so just saying, Alabama quarterbacks don't have the best reputation in the NFL, but we'll see, like I said. Najee Harris, the running back, 22 carries, 79 yards, 3.6 yards a carry. Of course, NFL, they like to see around 4, 3.6, whatever. But he looks like he could be I think somebody threw around the comparison of Derrick Henry. I don't know if he's Derrick Henry, but he could be. Who's to say he can't be Josh Jacobs? He did share a backfield with him last year, and Jacobs had a great rookie year for the Raiders. Kind of slowed down a little bit late in the year, but Jacobs is a guy who runs between the tackles, has decent breakaway speed, can run over guys, so he can run with power, he can run with a little bit of speed. Najee Harris is the same way. You pretty much know what you're getting with Alabama running backs, unless you get the overhyped ones. Trent Richardson, looking at you. But for the most part, Alabama running backs, kind of, you know what you're getting from them. Like I said, you have Derrick Henry. I don't know if Harris is quite Derrick Henry, but he could be. Maybe he's a mixture of Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs. But he's another guy who I think will perform well at the next level. He can catch passes out of the backfield too. That's a big plus for him, because he got 7 catches for 79 yards. So he had 2 touchdowns on the ground. He had 1 through the air. So he can produce both ways, which is going to help his stock even more. So yeah, I'm not really worried about Najee Harris at the next level. Now, depending on the team, a lot of teams' philosophies with running backs are they don't really take them in the first round, and if you do, you're probably going to take one late in the first round. I think this draft's probably going to be quarterback heavy, maybe offensive line heavy in the first round. So Harris might be a guy who goes probably top of the second round, which, I mean, that's still great for a running back. But yeah, so Harris I think is Josh Jacobs mixed with Derrick Henry. Only because I say Derrick Henry, like Harris is the type where, you know, you keep giving him carries and then he can kind of wear down defenses by the fourth quarter, and you know he might be one of those where he gains more yards later in the game than earlier in the game, but you just have to use him early in the game just to give defenses the, I guess, anticipation of him running the ball on early downs. But like I said, you can use him play action, have him come out of the backfield and make catches on the perimeter. He can make guys miss, so he should be fine. Next level. Now for the guy, actually I'll save Devontae Smith. Jalen Waddle. So Jalen Waddle will be declaring for the draft most likely. I mean, I do know he had the ankle injury. I think it was mid-season. Missed every game up until the title game. For some reason, he played in the title game. He didn't play the whole game, of course, because he did have 3 catches, but even warming up, you could tell he wasn't fully healthy. But then again, he was probably looking at it as his last chance to play with the team. National title game. He just wanted to contribute a little bit. So he got his couple of catches, and then he was kind of out of the game from that point. Before the injury, he was a guy who could have very well have been in the Heisman Trophy conversation because he kind of just did it all for them on the field. He was a punt returner. I think he was a kick returner as well. And then he was a great receiver opposite of Devontae Smith. Waddle, I think, could be I feel like the first name that pops in my mind is Robert Woods for some reason. That kind of wide receiver. Because I think Waddle is a bigger. Alright, so Jalen Waddle, I think, looks like Robert Woods. He's only 5'10". That's actually shorter than I thought he was. But maybe not Robert Woods. I think Robert Woods is more of an outside receiver. I think Waddle is more slot type receiver. Wow, I didn't really know he was 5'10". Then again, now you can play on the outside because wide receivers, usually the tall wide receivers are like 6 foot 6'1". He's only a couple inches shorter than that. So maybe depending on where he goes, he can, slide on the inside or play on the outside. I'm not really sure where he will go because I think before the injury he probably would have been maybe like a mid first round pick. So I think the combine, which I haven't heard any news about because the league was supposed to decide when they were going to have it and what they were going to do with it. So depending on what comes of that, I think the combine will be important for Waddle because he's going to have to show, 1, he's over the ankle injury, and 2, it hasn't really hurt his ability to, run routes, show explosiveness off the snap and all that. So yeah, he's somebody probably have to watch next few weeks, see what you hear from pro days, if they can have one or not. And then the combine, because I'm sure he will show up. At least he should, because I think he could benefit from it. He may not have to perform in all of the drills, but he should do some of them. So next up, I talked about Michi a little bit. I don't know if he's eligible to come out. I have a feeling he's a sophomore, so yeah, we won't talk about him because he will be back. So think of that. They're gonna lose Waddle, and they'll lose Devontae Smith. But they got Michi, and I'm sure they're probably bringing in some 4-star guy, so they should be fine next year. But Devontae Smith, so he's a senior, so he's graduating. He's 6'1", so yeah, he's an outside receiver. So that's weird because he doesn't look 6'1". Like when I was watching him, I thought he was probably like 5'10", and Waddle might have been. But so 6'1", yeah, he's a perfect outside receiver. He's got good speed, great route runner. He reminds me of Deshaun Jackson. That's what I see from him. I mean, let's see, what was his season stats? So he had 23 touchdowns, crazy. 117 catches, crazy. Over 1,800 yards this year. I mean, that's ridiculous. So now you can see why he won the Heisman Trophy. I mean, you put up numbers like that, you deserve the award. So yeah, I think he's going to be fine. Would not be, well, he probably should be the first wide receiver taken. Now, where exactly? So I guess so now thinking about it, I don't know if this maybe factors into what the Jets would do at number 2. But like if they decided to keep Darnold, you could see drafting a Devontae Smith to at least give him a weapon to throw to. But if they're really looking to move on from Darnold, if you swing a trade with a team, I guess for some more picks, you go Devontae Smith at number 2, maybe get a quarterback. What if whatever pick you get from the Darnold deal? I don't know. Because I think I saw somewhere people saying Devontae Smith to the Jets at number 2. I mean, Jets have a lot of issues. Wide receiver is one. So if you got the best wide receiver in college football at number 2, I mean, you could do worse with the pick. I feel like if they're going to start bringing in receivers, they probably have to figure out their quarterback situation first. So, interesting to see what the Jets do in the offseason. But, I mean, as that guy was saying, I wouldn't be upset to see the Jets take Smith, and it would make perfect sense. Like I said, yeah, he was clearly the best player on the field last night. Unfortunately, he got hurt. I think it was a play. I think he's running an out route. Extended his hands out to make the catch. Ohio State defender came in. His finger kind of got caught on his side, bent back, and when he came back out, he had his index finger and middle finger wrapped together. So, assuming one of them might have, dislocated or something. So, definitely have to see what comes from that. He should be fine, of course, but yeah, he definitely made himself some money last night. Because wherever you thought he probably would get drafted after last night's performance, you could expect that to go higher. So if he is in the top 5, shout out to him. But yes, ultimately, Alabama wins 52-24. And now the college football season's over. But like I said, Joel Klatt on Colin Cowherd's show as I said, backstory real quick. He was one of those guys who was sick of the BCS at the end of the BCS era. Liked the playoff when it started off, just the 2-team playoff. I think he was kind of on the fence about going to 4. Ultimately, he wanted to go to 4. He's been one of those who said stay to 4, but now he's come around to expanding to, I think at first it was 8, but then recently he's been kind of just throwing out all different types of scenarios. He threw like an 18 playoff. I think he did 16, 12. Yeah, I don't think he did more than 16. But today he's talking about a 14 team playoff, which I think makes actual sense. So his thing was you take number 1 and number 2 in the poll, which he spoke about a little bit after. We'll go into that. But you take number 1 and number 2, you give them basically a bye. So then you're not having a number 14 seed go up to Alabama and get blown out or something. That kind of defeats the purpose. You're seeding 3 through 14. You have them face off against each other in the first round. He said those games will be played on the higher seeds home field, so they get the advantage there. And then from there, you would have 1 through 8 at that point, seeded in the second round. Same thing, playing at the higher seeds field. And then you go into, I think he said you go into the bowl sites, I guess, after that for the round of, or how did it go? Because at that point you're in the round of 8. So yeah, the round after that would be your final 4, and then you could go into your bowl sites for that or whatever. And I thought, because like I said, I thought 16 was the best way to go. I could be convinced at 14, because at least that way you're rewarding number 1 and number 2 with a week off, I guess. So I gotta say, I liked his bracket layout. So now I'm at the point where if it's not 16, 14 works for me. He said he would get away from the whole committee aspect. He would use kind of a mixture of the computers that work the BCS. Use them. You could still use the committee, I guess, for the human poll, the AP poll, and the the AP poll, whatever the other poll is. Use the committee for that, but then use the BCS computer and have them rank the teams based off of all the math that they put into it, with strength of schedule, strength of victory, all that kind of stuff. Put it in the computer, let it crunch the numbers, give you your ranking that way, which I think makes sense. Also, what I've been saying, you got to kind of hold some of these top teams accountable, because next year Alabama plays like Mercer and a couple of smaller teams, which I think is ridiculous, because now you're going to have the same problem next year where a team like Cincinnati might be good, but they might not have any tough people on the schedule. So Klatt, his idea was you take all of your big name schools and then you basically give them a team from the group of 5. So in NCAA, you have your Power 5 conferences, which kind of run everything, with the SEC basically running them. So he's saying those schools, which are SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12, their out-of-conference games will be from the pool of Group 5. That way, they're not scheduling, Southwest Louisiana State or something. You force Alabama to schedule like a Cincinnati, for example, or a Boise State, schools like that, where the competition is at least higher so you can get maybe some better games out of it. So hopefully, they listened to Joel Klatt on that one, because I thought that was a great suggestion. But we'll have to see what the committee does. I think if they did vote to expand the playoff, it probably wouldn't happen for another, I think, 2 or 3 years, I believe. So hopefully there's some talk of it in, I guess, college football's off season, if you want to call it that. But yeah, so I think it's a good wrap up for the college title game. So I guess coming up with next episode, I did kind of tease it a couple episodes ago, but I think I'll finally do the next episode. We're going to talk about social issues where it crosses the line with sports and how that sends the social media world into a frenzy. Talk about some of that. Also do some NBA talk this week, as the pandemic is starting to really hit some of these teams and it's affecting this NBA schedule. So we'll look into that. And I guess by the weekend, we'll kind of, I don't know, we'll find something to talk about. So definitely tune in for the rest of the week and ongoing. Some good shows coming up. But thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. If you're new, you can interact with the show on the Facebook page by searching Chompin at the Bit. You can go to Twitter and follow the show at Chompin Podcasts. Capital C on Chompin, capital P on Podcasts. You can interact with me there. I do put up polls on Twitter a lot. I think the last poll I put up there was about Super Bowl favorites. And what was the results? I think it was tied between a couple of teams. I may run that poll again later on. Maybe once we get into the final four, see what people think. But yeah. So once again, thanks for tuning in. Hope you are being safe out there. God bless, and I'll catch you on the next episode. All right.